Locked my two fronts of the onesie and I've put them on top of each other, exactly on top of each other, lining up the centre front seams. I am putting the tape here right at the top of that zip, and I'm working out how long I want to put this here. Okay, so I'm planning my sewing line here. All right, so I'm going to put a pin just above that metal part of the zip because I don't want to sew over the metal part of the zip. So I'll put the pin just above it, probably a centimetre above or half a centimetre above will be fine. And there I have started to pin around the crutch, around the centre front crutch, which I'm going to sew with a 1.5 centimetre seam. I'm sewing my 1.5 centimetre seam here on the lock stitch machine, taking my pins out as I get to them, lining the overlocking up on top of each other and going around to the inside leg. Don't forget to reverse it both ends. So that the seams don't come undone. So always reverse about 3 or 4 stitches there. I'm changing my foot now, ready to put my zip on. You take the foot out, the finger guard's still here because we're, all about safety. And we're going to put our little narrow foot on. You can use this one, or you could use the other one that I've got over here. Okay, or you could use that one. I prefer this one, I think, for this one because I want a little bit of gap between my zip and my sewing, so it'll make it nice and easy for putting it up. You don't take the screw completely out when you're putting the foot on. Make sure your fingers are not behind because otherwise you will hurt yourself if you're holding it over here and you're pushing it, will just go right through and hurt your finger. Make sure the finger guard's back in place. Alright, and it's going to be sturdy there. And yes, I know the finger guard can be a little bit of a nuisance sometimes, but it's to stop you from sewing over it. Alright, I've pinned my zip in, remembering I've left the tape up the top here, that gives the allowance for your seam allowance at the top there, and my metal part should be past that zip there. I've basically put the tape of the zip towards the edge here. The zip is face down, which is like right side down towards the right side of my fabric. Okay, so if I was to do my zip up, it would be under here, right, so that the slider's underneath. Alright, so I'm going to go and sew this now. So sewing down here, taking the pins out as we go. I'm keeping the edge of the foot beside the teeth of the zip. Try not to stretch your fabric. That's why we laid it out flat on the table, so it sits naturally. If you stretch your fabric, you're going to end up with puckering and bulging of your zip when you've got a finished garment. And we're coming down towards the end here. Remembering again, still reverse at each end. So we're coming down as close as we can. Put the needle down, if I can, and bring the zip up. Maybe if you've got a chunky zip, you might not be able to bring the zip up quite the same. But I want to sew down here to about the metal part again, but don't sew over the metal because it will break your needle. So I've pinned along here, making sure it's sort of flat under here, because I'm going to sew along here exactly the same as I sewed the other one. So I'm sewing back along the other side now, just the same as I did on the other side, taking the pins as I get to them. Out, should I say, out. Lining up the tape with the overlocking again. Pinning it just kind of helps me from making sure that I don't stretch the fabric versus the tape. So I'm getting up towards the slider now. I've got the needle down here, and I want to take the slider past the zip foot, or actually it's not even a zip foot, it's just a really narrow foot I'm using. So that way it doesn't go off on a funny angle, and it just lines up like that. Okay, so I'm going to start sewing down this, pulling the fabric away. I'm going to put a hoodie on this, so I'm going to leave a little bit of room up the top, and we'll finish off the top stitching later. But it's easier to do your top stitching, especially on fabric like I've got. You won't see where it starts and finishes. But I'm using this normal size foot now, because I'm just going to use that as my guide. So I'm basically watching the side of this foot here and my fabric, and I'm stretching it away from the teeth, top stitch it down the side. Make sure when you're top stitching that you actually catch the tape underneath, because otherwise it will roll back out. But I'm just using a normal dress zip, so it won't matter too much. Now when I'm coming down here, I've got a top stitch across the bottom. I've got to feel through here for the metal part, okay? Because I do not want to be sewing over that metal part again. As I said before, I will break the needle. So I can feel the metal part there, so I'm going just past it. And I'll just put the needle down, change directions. So whatever distance you're sewing back into the middle, do the same right across to the other side, so that's even. And again, pulling the fabric away from the tape. So the reason I've left this part here without the top stitching is so that I can actually put my hoodie in here and turn it back. And when I've got that in there, I'll be able to top stitch it back up and finish it off.